I had a second question,
Yes?
and it has to do with the IRS. So over the years, I've been able to do very well in my business, but I still have this outstanding debt from 2001 that keeps building and building and building.
Have you poured any incense on it or anything?
No, and I just can't seem to earn the funds, or when I do, I don't want to pay the IRS. I want to pay the other bills. And so I was wondering if you could take me through, the from here to here to here to here.
Well, when you think about it, what do you think the emotion is that you commonly feel around that?
The IRS and the money that I owe them, I feel very bad.
Does it feel like love or hate?
Hate.
It's sort of fun to choose those extremes just to get a sense, and everyone sort of guessed which way it would lead. So, does it feel like hatred or anger?
It's more shame that I haven't paid it. Not necessarily, maybe anger at myself, yeah.
So, which feels better? Guilt or blame?
Blame?
Usually that's true. Is it true with you?
I don't feel like I'm at the place of blaming anyone. I feel more guilty. But blame would be better.
So, and as you poke around with this, do you think that guilt, embarrassment, shame, in other words, I should have been more on top of this, I should have done better, I should have had more discipline, I should have been keeping better records, I should have done a better job of this, I should have had a better accountant, in other words, there's all kinds of stuff that sort of revolves around there. You can spin there indefinitely, can't you? Mm-hmm. So, since you can't jump out of this into any place that feels really good, we would encourage you to try to come to a place that feels just a little bit better. So, can you find any relief in blame? Do you think you can do that? And by blame, we don't mean blaming you, because blaming you is what guilt is. Blaming you is what that feeling of shame is. So we want you to see if you can find something that gives you some relief from that. Have you tried it?
No. Not on this issue. Yeah, I could blame my accountants at the time.
So let's try that.
All right. So I have this big bill, and if they had just been more on top of everything, then I wouldn't have this big bill. If they had just made me more aware, then I wouldn't be amassing these penalties. If somebody else had been on top of it, I wouldn't be in this position. That feels better.
And these are the people that I pay to do this.
And these are the people that I pay to do this.
So now, you just said to us that feels better. So you did manage to release some resistance. Now, are you getting it from what you've heard so far here today, that this work that you're about is not about figuring out right now how to pay the IRS bill. Mm-hmm. This work is about how to figure out how to clean up your energy that allows the funds to flow in that can't flow in as long as there is this energy blockage that this person told you that you have. In other words, we don't really resonate with the term energy blockage because energy is always in motion, and it makes it sound like things are piled up, and it also makes it sound a little more permanent. But we think this person was accurately acknowledging that there is something that you want that you're thinking consistently in opposition with, and it comes up pretty often because the subject of money is something that touches you in many times in every day. So now let's beat the drum of that blame a little more. Let's stabilize there. Give us more about these accountants that should have been paying better attention to what they were doing.
They're such jerks. Didn't they know that I needed help? Didn't they notice the books that those bills weren't being paid? Why didn't they write out the checks? Why didn't they force me to pay the IRS? Why didn't they have a better system?
Why didn't they offer some solutions? Why didn't they make me more aware? Now, doesn't that feel better? In other words, and do you see what you just are doing here? You are letting yourself off the hook. And now there are a lot of people that don't want you to let yourself off the hook. And those are the people who have wanted you to be responsible. They've wanted you to be responsible not only for the things about your life, but they needed you to be responsible so that they could feel better as they saw you being responsible. So without even knowing it, you sort of got outside of your own guidance system. You lost this vibrational relativity between where you are and where you want to be. But now you're back on track. In other words, you know where you are, and you can feel that you want to feel better, and now you've started your trek, your emotional journey into a better feeling place. Now, we know that blame does not become you. It's not your nature. We know that anger doesn't become you either. But could you say to us clearly and mean it that that was a worthwhile consideration just now, and that you do feel a release of relief?
I do, because, yeah, I've been swallowing it this whole time, and it hasn't gotten me anywhere, you know?
All right, so now that you've sort of stabilized in this blame or maybe even anger, now let's see if you can find even a softer place to go, because it doesn't become you to beat up on anybody. It's not your nature. And so we know that doesn't feel very good to you either, but it did feel better than beating up on yourself. So it was a good choice for you for that moment, but it isn't a good choice for you to stay there. In other words, we want you to move off of that into a better feeling place. So now try to find something that is softer. It might even be softer relative to the specifics of these people. You might try to let them off the hook a little bit as you just let yourself off the hook a little bit.
Okay, how about, they probably didn't know how bad it had gotten. I didn't know how bad it had gotten. It could have been worse. I am making payments, so I'm moving in the right direction. Am I doing the right stuff?
How does it feel?
Okay, I feel better. Now I feel like I'm rationalizing, but I like rationalizing, because in this case, it's feeling better.
All right, now just to see how you're doing, now focus back on the IRS, the agency itself, and what happens to that feeling within you. Does it take a little bit of dip? In other words, do you feel worse as you focus upon them?
Not really, no. I feel like it's off of me. I felt like before it was all me, and now, because I blamed it on somebody else, it's their fault. And so I feel less bad.
All right, so now you are able to understand that the IRS just has a job to do, and that they're not picking on you in any specific way. They're just a collection agency. Now talk to us about taxes in general. In other words, what do taxes in general feel like to you?
Well, I feel it's restrictive. I feel like I'm not free to spend all the money that I make, that I have to always set aside money for them. I feel like I signed up for that when I became an owner of a company, but it's also confusing. There are taxes everywhere, and I have a hard time figuring out what taxes to pay when.
All right, so let's beat the drum of that just a little bit, about how the system is confusing, and it's not the easiest thing to stay on top of it. And there are taxes everywhere. In other words, can you feel that from another angle now, you're sort of working your way up the scale again?
Right.
In other words, as you focus back on the IRS, you begin to feel that not freedom again. But then as you begin to focus upon the IRS and try to bring yourself into a better feeling place, so just make that effort here.
So, anyone would be confused. It is a confusing situation. It's not just me. I've heard it from many other owners. But I feel like I'm making little steps every day, and I put a system in place recently to help me remember when to pay my taxes. I finally hired a bookkeeper to pay my taxes more regularly. I'm having more regular meetings with my accountant. I'm doing steps in the right direction so I can understand when to pay my taxes.
And so this problem that was sort of exacerbated has forced me into keeping better records and doing a better job of delegating and making a better plan of what I'm going to do. And while there have been things that I've been very confused about before, I'm getting clearer and clearer about what I need to do. So actually, as a result of all of this, I'm a better business owner than I was before. The IRS has, maybe in a witting way, but maybe unwittingly, has put me in a situation where I am taking on more control of my business. And that does feel good to me.
That's exactly what I was thinking. It has. by forcing me, by having me focus little by little by little and creating new systems, I am now a better business owner.
And so as I make these payments, I'm appreciating the fact that they're allowing me to do that. They didn't close me down. It must happen frequently enough. And so they are allowing me to make the payments as I can make the payments. And now each time I make one of these payments, it is a representation of how far I've come. And so I realize that I'm in a partnership with a lot of people. I'm in partnership with the people who purchase from me. I'm in partnership with the people who work with me. And in essence, I'm a bit in partnership with the governmental agencies. And I'm not going to revolutionize the system. I'm not going to try to pull such an upheaval that I pull out of the system altogether. I understand that it is much easier to go with the flow of this. And this whole thing has been a sort of educational thing for me. And I'm feeling pretty good about it. I certainly don't feel any shame about it anymore. I feel that, as with all things that are uncomfortable, I've come so far in what I've learned about it. And so I am appreciating now, maybe for the first time in a long time, the clarity that has come to me as a result of this. And I know that in this clarity, that all of the desires that have been born out of this contrast that are waiting for me over there in my vibrational escrow, as I've released this resistance, I can feel that I'm actually in a better place now than I'd ever been before. Wouldn't it be an interesting thing if my concern and my hatred for the IRS had caused enough consternation and enough rockets of desires that I created a bright and beautiful future that my hatred of the IRS was keeping me from, and then my willingness to focus in a way that made me feel better has actually brought me now into vibrational alignment with a bigger, better picture than could have been there if it had not been for the trouble that I had with the IRS. So it's interesting that the very thing that I wanted the least, in other words, the thing that I thought was giving me the most trouble, was actually the basis that caused me to launch desires, and also the reason that for my own survival I had to find a better way of feeling good. The IRS might be the best thing that has ever happened to me. It's possible that it has caused a focus within me that is going to bring me maybe millions of dollars one day, more than I would have been able to achieve otherwise. I have many friends at the IRS. I love writing this check to the IRS. It is symbolic of how far I have come. Yes.
Yes.